Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate day number 1160, Saturday, June the 13th, 2020. Thank you so much for tuning in. And welcome back to the Theater of the Absurd. Yes, that's right, my friends. It's the Theater of the Absurd. And hopefully you are in the peanut throwing section like me, watching it from afar as opposed to being in the front row. Meaning I hope that you're not in the one of these blue state cities. Especially Seattle. Yes, that's right. Where we just had the mayor come out and tell us that, hey, everything going on right there in Seattle right now, it's like 1968 all over again. It's the summer of love. The summer of love all over again. That's right, my friends. Come on, people now. Smile on your brother. Everybody get together. Gonna love one another right now. Right now. Yes, that's right, my friends. It's the summer of love. Yes, that's right. And if you want to experience the summer of love firsthand, just go on up to Seattle and check out the Zone up there. And you'll find out what that's all about. Maybe you'll see the ghost of Janis Joplin walking around, or Jimi Hendrix. Who knows what you might find up there. My goodness, what a disaster. Yeah, the summer of love. Now, I actually remember the summer of love. I was a kid, but I had cousins and aunts who were, you know, in their teens and 20s, and I do remember the summer of love. It was kind of freaky, if you want to, you know, be quite honest with you. A lot of freaky people running around, and I was a little kid just kind of watching it all go down. But it was the summer of love, 1968, which was a whole different type of love than what we see right now going on in Seattle. But that's what the mayor says. It's the summer of love all over again in Seattle. Check it out for yourself. Now, we've been watching the liberals come unhinged now for 3.5 years now. And I was just thinking about this today on my drive home from work. And it just seems like now that we're 3.5 years in the rearview mirror from when Trump got elected, and we've seen everything that has happened since Trump won the election. And obviously we know from the very night, the very night that Trump won the election, that he wasn't supposed to win, and we saw the meltdowns, and that was really the beginning of it. Now, along with, I'm sure many of you, we enjoyed watching all those compilation videos of all the various meltdowns from the Young Turks to MSNBC to Mad Cow and all the rest. And while we were highly entertained by all that, we probably thought that, well, they'll get over it here in a couple of days. They'll get on back to life as normal, and this will all, you know, go away. These people will realize, hey, it's an election. Sometimes your guy wins, sometimes your guy loses. But there's something that happened in the election of 2016 when Trump won that's unlike anything I've seen in my lifetime. Obviously, they have not gotten over it. They've only gotten worse. They have never really been able to accept it, never will accept it. And we've seen the trajectory of events that have gone on, not just with them trying to drive Trump from office with the coup and everything else, but I'm talking about the whole, you know, the whole bigger picture. Everything that's been going on in social media, with the mainstream media, with the parties, the political parties, with commentators, with Hollywood. It's just, things have come completely unhinged since Trump won the election. And I'm thinking about exactly why that is. Now, obviously, they all believed that Hillary was going to win 100% and that Trump had zero chance. But the fact of the matter is, if we go back to that time period, the polls really had tightened up in the last few weeks before the election. By the time we got to October, there were people talking about the fact that, hey, you know, the polls are really tightening up. And it's not 100% sure that Hillary could win. I mean, it's a long shot, but he's got a chance to win. And so it wasn't like we went into the last few weeks of that election, you know, it wasn't quite even as dramatic as, say, the Truman and what's the guy he ran against? He ran against Truman and Dewey. You know, Dewey, they were showing Dewey up by like anywhere from 9 to 12, 13 points just weeks out from the election. Truman had no chance, but Truman ends up winning. So, and it sends a shock to the system whenever you have a national election and everything says that a person's going to win and another person's going to lose, and then it doesn't turn out that way. It always is a shock to the system. But within a couple days, a week or so, people get over it and they get on back to their life as normal. Just like, when Obama won two times. And of course, I don't think anybody questioned whether or not I don't think Romney or McCain ever had a chance to beat Obama. That was pretty clear. But it could have happened. But it didn't. Things worked out the way it looked like they were going to work out. Most of the time, it works out that way, but sometimes it doesn't. But, I was unhappy when Obama was elected and then re-elected, but, the day after I said, okay, well, let's got Obama for 4 years or 4 more years, and I got on with my life. I didn't dwell on it or anything like that. I just thought, it really sucks, but hey, we ran 2 bad candidates, Senator Magoo and Willard Romney. So, I wasn't all that brokenhearted probably on those 2 elections, because while I was certainly no fan of the Marxist Obama, I looked at McCain and Romney, and I didn't feel much better about either of them. I was a Ron Paul supporter at that time, now in 2012, and still am a big Ron Paul fan now. But something else is going on here, and I'm thinking that what actually happened, I'm thinking it's not even so much that it was the shock of the election, because after 3.5 years, despite how it turned out, after 3.5 years, even the most left-wing radical would have now come to terms with the fact that Trump won and Hillary lost. And we've had plenty of time to go back and reflect as to what all the reasons for that are. And there's some very good logical reasons for why Trump won and Hillary lost. And you can go back and kind of revisit that issue. There's been books written about it, lots of commentary written about it, lots of conversation about it. So when you look at it now, 3.5 years down the road, we can see that it probably wasn't as big as a long shot as everyone thought, and that there were real concrete reasons why Trump was able to win and why Hillary lost. So you would think that by now people would have grasped this, idea. Trump's now the president. That's the way it goes. And they would get on with their lives, and they would work on developing a better candidate to try to defeat him in 4 years. But as we've seen, that's not how things have gone. They went straight for the coup, and they've never stopped, and that continues to this day. And it makes me believe that there's something deeper going on here. And so I think that there's a lot more to this, what happened in 2016. And I think it's not, some of that was real shock about the fact that Trump won and Hillary lost. It was real shock. I can understand that. For a couple of days I can understand that, but not for 3.5 years of where we've come to today. Because let's face it, since 2016, things have been just completely crazy. Again, the theater of the absurd is what we have been living through for 3.5 years. And I think that what's actually going on here is not so much that Trump won. I think that that would explain maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days of meltdowns and crazy stuff that we would watch on YouTube videos. But it's now 3.5 years later, and they're just as crazy, if not crazier, than they were on the night of the election. So I think what actually happened here, and what is happening here, is that it wasn't so much that Trump beat Hillary. I think it was the fact that all these left-wingers looked at Trump and they thought to themselves, there's no way in the world that people are going to vote for this guy. And that's because that they live largely on the coast or in large urban areas where they're around people who think just like they do. And they really have never been to Ohio or Idaho or Wyoming or Montana or the Dakotas or places like that, other than flying over them or driving through them. And they really don't know what type of people live in places like this. And that the fact that they're, conservative thinking people, libertarian-minded, conservative thinking people. They really can't identify not only with that ideology, but even understand that there are people like us who think and believe the way we do. It's so far removed from their reality that they really can't even digest it. And I think that what really is driving all of this is not so much just the surprise and the shock of Trump wins and beating Hillary. I think it has more to do with the fact that they were personally rejected. Everything that they stand for and believe in was rejected on a very large scale. 63 million people voted against what they believe in, and they were rejected. And I think, because this is personal, so I think that these left-wing crazy people that we're dealing with right now, it's personal for them because it was a sense of personal rejection of what they believe and their views on the world and in this country, what this country should be like. And they cannot accept, a lot of people do not like being rejected. And I think that that's why it's personal, and it's a personal rejection of what they believe. And that's why they can't handle it or deal with it or move on, And so I'm thinking, what's going to happen? Because they honestly believe now, if you talk to left-wingers now, you will notice that their main thing that they say now is that, well, see, now all those people who voted for Trump can see what we were all talking about, of how bad he actually is. And so he's going to lose in a landslide in 2020, because now that they've all had a chance to see the big mistake that they made and how bad Trump is, he's going to lose in 2020. And no matter who we run against him, even if it's someone as weak as Biden, he's going to win, because all those people who voted for Trump obviously have seen the light, that Trump is a disaster, and they're going to vote for anyone to get rid of Trump. This is what they all believe now. Of course, they apparently don't look at the polls, because Trump is more popular now than he was back then. He has more Republican support today than he did in 2016. And he is going to have more enthusiastic supporters going out to vote for him in 2020 than he did in 2016, and will likely win even larger in 2020 than he did in 2016, because quite honestly, even as bad as the rotten Reverend Clinton was, she's still a better candidate than Biden by far. So I guess what I'm saying here is that as we sit here 5 months out from the election, prepare yourself, because if you think that once Trump wins re-election that this is all going to go away, believe me, it's actually going to get worse. It's going to get worse, because these people are setting themselves up again for another huge rejection of their personal beliefs. And I'm not sure exactly how crazy. I mean, think about it. It's going to be worse. They're going to be even crazier in 2020 than they were in 2016, because in their minds, they believe that Trump, people who voted for Trump, are having feeling voters' remorse, and want to throw Trump out and replace him with anybody, including even has to be Biden. So they're going to suffer a major meltdown when Trump gets reelected, in probably even larger fashion than he did in 2016. And this is going to cause a meltdown that's even worse than what we saw in 2016. So the only thing that I think that can possibly keep this country from being completely ripped apart after Trump wins re-election is if the Republicans can win back the House and hold on to the Senate. If the Democrats have any power whatsoever in Congress after the 2020 election, if they hold the House or the Senate, if they have both, Trump will be impeached. But if they are deprived of the House, if the Republicans win back the House, win the Senate, at least ways they can't do tremendous damage from a policy perspective or blocking Trump or whatever in Washington, other than continuing to take cases to court and try to challenge everything that Trump does, which is, they'll always be doing that. But, we have to make sure that we win the House, hold on to the Senate, because if the Democrats won either, or especially if they get both houses in 2020, it's going to be much, much worse. If they get both houses in 2020, they'll impeach Trump immediately. So, I think what we're looking at here in 2020 is an even more. It's hard to imagine these people get any more unhinged. But I think that we could see a meltdown of epic proportions, at worst in 2016, and in the following 4 years, Trump's second 4-year term will be just as chaotic and crazy as his first term was. I don't think there's any cure for what these people have, Trump derangement syndrome. It will only get worse. Now, they'll be terribly defeated and beat down, so they'll be awfully depressed. But, I expect that Trump wins, in November, that there will literally be multi-million man, marches and riots, and I think I think we're just getting a window, a look into what is coming in Trump's second term, which I believe will be worse. And I don't know where it ends. I don't know where it goes from there. But certainly, I think we need to prepare ourselves, because as crazy as things are right now, it's going to get worse. But as long as Trump wins, Republicans can win back the House and get the Senate, at least ways we can move forward with the policy agenda, and we'll just have to deal with the extracurriculars as need be. And I also do believe that it's very likely that some of this could be, controlled if, in fact, we see a lot of local elections, city elections, city councils, mayors, people like that, and local elections. If we can see some Democrats flipped there and get some Republicans in there to try to tamper down some of the radicalism that we see, I think that will help. And I think that that's very likely to happen. But all this right now is speculation. It's totally up in the air. We don't know what's going to happen in 5 months. It's a long time in politics. So we'll keep watching. But again, as crazy as things are right now, expect that when Trump wins re-election, it's going to get worse. We better hold on to the Congress. We better win back the House. We better hold on to both houses and hope for the best, because things are going to get crazier, if you can possibly imagine that. Summer of Love, 1968 all over again. I don't think so. I don't think so. Now, let's talk about the Banana Republic. Most of you by now are aware of what happened in the Flynn hearing yesterday, the Michael Flynn hearing with the district court. I was quite shocked. I think a lot of people were. We were expecting them to shoot this thing down, but they did not. They did not. So you have an Obama judge, a Bush judge, and a Trump judge. It appears that they're going to let these proceedings move forward, despite the ridiculous arguments that were made. So it looks like they're going to allow the process to continue. So that means that there will now be a hearing on July the 16th. And quite honestly, at that hearing, it's very likely, it's possible, I wouldn't say likely, but it's possible that Judge Sullivan will dismiss the case. His lawyer, Judge Sullivan's lawyer, says that the case will likely be dismissed, agreeing it will likely be dismissed, but she says that they want more information. They just want to drag it out. How long they want to drag it out, I imagine indefinitely. Because what's going to happen? Well, if they have these hearings, and because the district court didn't shoot it down and tell Sullivan, no, we're going to remove you from this case and we're going to dismiss the case right now, because they didn't do that and they're going to allow the thing to continue, it'll go into the next hearing on July 16th. And regardless of what Sullivan does, he's now laid the groundwork so that we could be looking at appeals. We could be looking at appeals. So we could be looking at appeal and another appeal and another. It's almost like they want to drag this out until 2020, hoping that Biden will win and that they will get rid of Attorney General Barr and bring in a new Attorney General, and they will reinstitute the charges against Flynn. As crazy as that sounds, it's in their mind probably a strategy. But yeah, it was very disappointing that the three-judge panel are going to allow this shit show to continue and seemingly with no end. Because again, now that this is going to go forward, you're going to have the hearings on the 16th, regardless of what's decided. It's very likely you could have follow-up appeals to that. This thing could go on and on and on, and it's disturbing, and it's hard for me to believe that the DOJ is not able to put the kibosh on this. And I don't know what options they have at this point. I don't know. I'm not a legal expert, but I imagine they're working on some strategy. But we'll just have to see what happens. But I was very disappointed that the Flynn case was not dismissed by the circuit court. It's just going to go on. And like I say, we're living in extraordinarily crazy times. Crazy times. There's a lot of politics going on right now, and it's ugly, and it's in every single thing that's happening now is politically driven. Everything. There's throw the rule of law out, throw common sense out, throw good policy versus bad policy, throw all that out the window. None of that matters. Everything right now, it's a political war. Every issue is to be maximized for political expediency. Every issue is political. Every laws, forget laws. Everything is politics right now, and especially in an election year. And it's just going to get worse. I mean, it's going to get worse. I wish I could say things are going to calm down and get back to normal, but I think as long as Donald J. Trump is president of the United States, I think this is what we're looking at. It's the new normal, I guess you would say. Now, one thing that this Judge Gleason, who was arguing on behalf of Judge Sullivan in this writ of mandamus, he made the comment in the hearings that there were highly irregular activities, and what he's referring to is the DOJ's decision to dismiss the Flynn case. And then he goes on to, elaborate on that. And it was just almost like an Orwellian world, an Orwellian argument, as he's, trying to rationalize this comment about there being highly irregular activities by the DOJ in dismissing the Flynn case, when in fact it was everything about the Flynn situation that involved it becoming a criminal matter and a court case that was highly irregular. Everything from the fact that the Flynn investigation was supposed to be closed on January 4th of 2017, but they say they reject that, and the leadership says no, we're going to pursue forward anyway, going after Flynn. Then they come over and do the sabotage him in this setup so-called interview where he has not read his Miranda rights. He is not told what the nature of the Q&A is. He was never given an opportunity, because if he had been told about what that really was, he would have had a lawyer present, and he should have been read his Miranda rights. You have a situation where you had a group of corrupt FBI and DOJ officials, and this is all out now. I mean, we've had the IG report. We've had actually 4 IG reports come out. We've had multiple congressional hearings. We've had multiple declassified documents. There's no longer any question. Even the DOJ admits that. I mean, it was this U.S. attorney from Missouri, Jeff Jensen, who was put on the case by Barr to look into it. He looked into it. He found the problems, and then he took it up with this top U.S. attorney in D.C. They agreed. Then they go to Barr and say, we recommend you drop the case against Flynn, and they lay out all the reasons why. And so these are the things that are really unprecedented, but yet this lawyer, or former Judge Gleason guy, on behalf of Sullivan, flips the entire script and completely ignores everything that I just mentioned. He doesn't even touch on it, as if none of this. And this seems to be the approach that they're using to try to continue to cover up the Spygate or Russiagate, Obamagate, whatever you want to call it, is they just simply ignore it. They act as if it does not exist. They act as if there is no Durham investigation. They act as if there was no IG report. They act as if there was no declassified documents showing what actually happened. It's just almost like they just ignore it. Like, if we ignore it, it'll just go away and no one will know. And this is another reason why Attorney General Barr and John Durham must absolutely bring charges, hold people accountable, and make sure the truth is out. Because the media will make sure that no one ever learns the truth. And we'll continue in this Orwellian world. And you cannot allow this to happen. Because pretty soon, everything that we, everything will be a lie. Every single thing will be a lie. And we're getting into very dangerous territory when that becomes the case. The media is done. Forget about the media. We no longer have that as a firewall to preserve some sense of freedom and democracy and the whole 9 yards. That's all gone out the window. And that's why things are so dangerous right now. The media has been weaponized for one political party, and it's creating this sort of Orwellian world effect. And it's very dangerous, quite honestly. So anyway, very disappointed with what went on there, but we'll continue to watch and see if the Department of Justice under Bill Barr has any options, and if so, will they exercise them? And quite honestly, I think a lot of it has to do is that they know that once Flynn is dismissed, the case is dismissed, Flynn, who knows a lot of things, can start talking. And they don't want Flynn talking. Now, we've been hearing from Lindsey Grahamnesty about the fact that there's 4 specific people who interviewed Steele's subsource that he wants to talk to, and we're being told by Lindsey Graham that he is being blocked, and we assume it's by Christopher Nosh at Sherlock Ray, blocked from interviewing a key person here. And that key person, of course, is this FBI agent, Souma. Now, Souma, just want to sort of give you a real quick reminder of who we're talking about here with this agent, FBI agent Steve Souma. Now, Stephen Souma worked out of the New York field office in counterintelligence. He is the one who wrote the very first FISA application on Carter Page that was rejected. Then he rewrote the application, including and then he included the dossier information. And at that time, once including the dossier information, the FISA was then issued. That was in July of 2017 that he wrote that application, when he put the dossier in. So the first one he wrote, rejected. Then the second one, he includes the dossier material. It gets issued. The Inspector General, Huckleberry Horowitz, says that it was Souma who made 17 errors on the Page application. Souma was referred by Inspector General Huckleberry Horowitz for disciplinary review. Horowitz described Souma and an unnamed staff operations specialist. Souma and an unnamed staff operations specialist as the 2 Crossfire Hurricane team members who had primary responsibility over the Carter Page investigation. Carter Page's denials, when they interviewed Carter Page and asked him about these things, and he denied knowing Sechin and this other Russian, and he denied working with the Russians, denied all this to the FBI, Souma, and this other individual, the staff operations specialist. Those denials were withheld from the FISA court by Souma. They also admitted significant information from Stefan Halper, which was exculpatory. And keep in mind, Souma was Halper's handler. Souma also spoke at an intelligence seminar with Stefan Halper and Richard Dearlove back in 2011. And we know that Souma was Halper's handler. So if he was at Cambridge in 2011, that's 9 years ago. That's going back quite a way. So this shows that Souma has known Halper for a long time. He has known Dearlove for a long time, and that puts him in this cabal of creepy characters who are all involved in the coup. So it puts him in some pretty bad company for quite some time. So we'll find out whether or not he is going to be available to be interviewed by Lindsey Grahamnesty. But certainly you can expect that Durham either has or will be seriously interviewing Souma. And I think that you'll find out a lot. He is absolutely a key person in the Crossfire Hurricane investigation. And it's you know, you could prosecute and stop at Souma if he does not give up anyone above him. But I think that obviously he was on the Crossfire Hurricane team, and his immediate supervisor would have been Priestep or Strzok. He's the top guy in counterintelligence in New York, but Strzok is the guy running it in D.C., and Strzok's boss is Priestep. So that's kind of like your 3 top tier right there. Priestep, Strzok, and Souma. So there's 3 guys right there that you got to find out what they knew and when they knew it. And I think you're going to find out that they were all 3 totally aware of everything and involved in everything. Now, let's also get an update on this recently fired State Department Inspector General Steve Linic. Because as you remember, Steve Linic was fired by Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. And we really hadn't had many details about why that is. But now Schumer and Pelosi want to have, or calling for, investigations as to why Linic was fired. So now we're starting to get some leaks about why that may have been. So, of course, he's fired by Pompeo, and we know that Linic played a role in the impeachment in regards to UkraineGate. We also know that he provided documents to the Democrat staffers regarding Trump and Ukraine prior to and during the Ukraine impeachment hearings. We know that it was Linic who was investigating the Trump administration's use of emergency powers to sell weapons to Saudi Arabia, something else he was involved in. It was also recently disclosed that Souma was found to have sent 23 confidential emails from his State Department account to his personal email account during the period of March through September of 2019. And this is suggesting that Linic may have been engaged in some unauthorized leaking of classified material to journalists, to the media. And that is what led to the investigation into Linic. His leaking unauthorized leaking of classified information to the media is what got them onto his tail. So that is what's going on with Linic. Whether or not this continues, where it goes from here, I don't know. He is, I understand, fighting this. So we will find out exactly where that goes and to what extent he was involved in the Ukraine coup. We know he certainly was providing documents. We know that he contacted just Democrat members of Congress, which is a little shady. He didn't go to that committee with Republicans and Democrats. He exclusively went to Democrats and provided them with materials regarding Ukraine and the Trump administration prior to and during the Ukraine impeachment hearings. So there's a lot of smoke around Steve Linic, and I think that we'll probably find out more about him, or else he's just going to disappear and go away. Depends on what his liabilities are and to who he could cause damage to. Finally, let's finish up with a very interesting tweet by Papadopoulos. Papadopoulos put out on his Twitter feed yesterday, he says that an Australian agent came to his house and wanted to enter his home using a bogus phone number and a fake story. And he says that this occurred just after his interview with Maria Bartiromo, where he was explaining Australia's involvement in Spygate and the declassified information that has been coming out. Now, apparently, Papadopoulos was not home. His wife, Simona, was. And so apparently the guy comes to the house. Simona opens the door, and he's kind of pushy. He wants to get into the house. And he tries to fool Simona by trying to convince her that it's okay to let him in because he's talking to George. At which point he holds up a phone which has a number on it. One of those numbers is a number in Papadopoulos' phone number, but not all the numbers match. Simona looks at it, very curious. She had her phone on her. She reaches up and takes a screenshot of his phone, which displays the number. And at the same time, he's trying to convince, this Australian guy is trying to convince Simona that he's talking or texting with Papadopoulos, and he's saying it's okay to come in, go on in and talk to my wife or whatever. And of course she knows that this is BS. At the same time, Papadopoulos actually is texting Simona, telling her to call the cops. And so the guy doesn't actually get into the house. She runs him off, and they do contact the police, and it's now a police matter. Very, very strange, very peculiar situation going on there. So I guess we'll find out more about that, follow up on that as we learn more. Thank you so much for tuning in. Welcome again to the Theater of the Absurd. It will continue for the unforeseeable future. It's the summer of love. Get on up to Seattle and check it out for yourself. See ya. Bye.